High Court chose to ignore the very government, the very papers and documents that the government had issued. The birth certificate, for instance, and other documents that the government has issued. They refuse to accept that as evidence, but choose to rely upon an ML, which is a medical letter by a junior doctor. Who just started her practice. The court, the Sindh High Court, Justice Rizwan, relied entirely on the one letter which was submitted within a matter of few hours by an individual who just started her medical practice. We've seen in the past that in cases like these, the recommendation of courts in general is that reliance on an individual is always open to bias, and hence a medical board should have been formed, which is by which more than two people give their opinion on the medical reports. It is only when you have the opinion of more than two doctors in situations like these when you can claim that this report has some kind of weight, that this report has some kind of a value. Why are we relying on an individual? And it's extremely alarming for us that the judge chose to use this as evidence, accept this as evidence, and then returned her back to her alleged husband. Not husband, alleged husband. It is based on these circumstances and these facts that the Supreme Court has accepted this case. Right? An appeal in the Supreme Court or any higher court of the country only accepts an appeal if there are grounds for appeal. And these were the grounds of appeal. Now, as we all know, everyone attending this protest is obviously the case. The legal age of marriage in Sindh is 18 years. And the legal age of marriage in Punjab is 16 years. We all know that. The report came out and the report stated that she is between 16 and 17 years of age. That's what the medical report stated. Well, then the question still arises that how was, let's say for instance, a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old was taken away from her parents without the consent of the wali, without the consent of the legal guardian, and they took her and she got married. And the nikah was recited. But then on the contrary, the very people who recited the nikah are saying that we never recited it. So these are all questions and concerns that we have as honorable citizens of Pakistan, as honorable overseas citizens of Pakistan, as concerned Pakistanis, that are our daughters not safe in Pakistan anymore? Will they become victim of these, at the behest of individuals? Are they not safe anymore? What steps can the government of Pakistan take to ensure the safety of our people, of our daughters especially? The question of ethics is something different. We'll talk about that as we move forward. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take too much of your time. I just want to clarify what our... This is the legality of Pakistan, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. These are the legal facts around which this case is revolving. When this case is presented, the case has been taken up by Jibran Nasir, who is an activist and a lawyer in Pakistan as well. His appeal in the Supreme Court states, and the Supreme Court will be deciding whether the nikah is valid or not. If the Supreme Court rules that the nikah is invalid, she will be returned back to her parents. But our demand right now is that because this case is still pending, once an appeal is accepted before the Supreme Court, all decisions of the Lahore High Court and the decision of the Sindh High Court is invalid now. That's why the appeal will be heard. While this appeal is pending, Dua Zahra should be returned back to her wali, should be returned back to her father, to her legal guardian, to her mother, or she should be placed in a private or government-owned shelter home, but not with her alleged husband, because we are not sure whether he is her husband or not. And then obviously there are also many other concerns, whether who these people are, who the family is, what kind of people they are. Dua Zahra is so immature. Is she mature enough to make these decisions on her own behalf or not? Now, we all also know that Dua Zahra her family belongs to the Shia faith. It's very important to understand that in Pakistan, rules of inheritance and other Islamic rulings are based on what sect of Islam you belong to. Dua Zahra belongs to the Shia sect, and in the Shia sect, as our honorable ulama in Pakistan have also stated in various press conferences, that there are three main criterias for a nikah, for the validity of the nikah. Okay. First is balughat, whether she is physically mature, if she's baligh, physically mature to get married to someone or not. That's one thing, the criteria of age. Second is the consent of the wali, the consent of the guardian. In Shia Islam, without the consent of the wali, of the guardian, a marriage cannot take place. This is the ruling of all mujtahids and all ulama, and there is absolutely no difference of opinion on this. The consent of the wali is mandatory, it's wajib. The only reason why a consent of the wali may not be taken into consideration is if the girl is independent, one which Dua Zahra is clearly not. She was dependent on her parents, she was going to school, she was living with her parents, she was not independent. And the last criteria being of her being of sound mind, of her having the tools and the common sense to be able to make her own decisions, which is called, is she a rushd or not? Is she a rashida or not? Which also clearly, if you ask any ordinary regular man, any reasonable person will say that this is not a decision of a rashida. It's not. To go against your family and to make a mockery of the very institution of marriage, it is a clear sign that this is not a rashida. Having said that, what we're doing over here right now is simple. We expect the government of Pakistan to follow the due process of law.